Okay, today we're on CyberDefenders going through the KioskExpo7 Lab. It's an endpoint forensics lab. It's classed as a medium lab with a 1 hour estimated time to complete. The tools required are CyberChef, database browser for SQLite, Zimmerman tools, decode, and a text editor. We've got a scenario. So let's jump into the lab and go over the scenario. Okay, so on October 18, 2025, Wazar Enterprise hosted their first ever cybersecurity conference. To streamline registration, the IT team configured several laptops in Windows kiosk mode to display a QR code registration page for attendees' self-service. After the event concluded, the security team detected suspicious outbound connections originating from one of the kiosk's devices, KioskExpo7. Surveillance footage revealed a suspicious individual spending an unusually long time interacting with that particular terminal. Welcome to the KioskExpo7 Lab. Step into the role of a forensic investigator to dissect a physical access attack that escalated from a kiosk breakout to a full system compromise. The threat actor escaped browser restrictions, escalated privileges, established persistence, and potentially impacted conference attendees. You've been provided with a KAPE triage image from the compromised kiosk. Your mission is to reconstruct the complete attack timeline, identify the breakout and escalation techniques used, and determine the full scope of compromise. Okay, so before we jump through the questions, I wanted to go through the setup for the lab. As we can see here, I've loaded up the lab already, just to extend our time. I've got all our artifacts out to try and reduce time. So we know we're going to need the history. So we've got here from artifacts, Kiosk Expo7, evidence, C drive users, Kiosk, app data, local, Microsoft Edge, user data, default, history. So I've pulled the history into database browser. We've also loaded the registry. We've got NT user hive loaded and the system software hive loaded. And for logs, just pull through the commands here. So we've extracted their events from PowerShell operational into temp, and I've pulled the MFT, and also using --dr to give us the resident files. So any, I think it's at 100, under 100 bytes, files that are still on the NTFS file system will be able to be recovered. So really small files. So that's into temp as well. And we've got the prefetch files outputted. So we'll have a prefetch timeline as well. And I think that's it in terms of what we've gathered. And then I've loaded those logs into Timeline Explorer. So we've got MFT, we've got the prefetch timeline, PowerShell event logs, and this is the prefetch. I really don't like using prefetch in Timeline Explorer. I find it hard to read, but I do like to get the timeline, so that's why I've done that. But if we do prefetch, I'll probably just run it through PowerShell. Okay, so that explains our lab setup, and let's jump into question one, and we should have a lot of these artifacts already pulled out. So question one, initial access. One of the most well-known Kiosk breakout techniques involves abusing browser shortcuts Control+O, Control+S, or Control+P to invoke File Explorer, then clicking the Help button to spawn an unrestricted browser instance. What is the full URL that was invoked when the threat actor clicked the Help button, allowing them to open a new browser instance outside kiosk restrictions? Click onto this and we will go to our Edge browser history, and we want to view the tables, and we want URLs. Now, pretty much the question has already answered it for us. We know that browser escape that they're clicking on help. And if we look through the logs here, these are the title windows that are coming up. Get help with File Explorer. And then you can see after they've gone to this window, we're starting to see access to File, C drive windows. So their escape has sort of happened here. Previously, we can also see the QR code here. The whole scenario is that there's a QR code displayed on the browser for people to check in. So we know answer one is going to be https go.microsoft.com/fw link, and there's the answer. We've also got the timestamp. Although it's not part of the question, if we go, I have a window here. So to convert this to a time, we need to multiply it by 10. So we need to add a 0 on the end. Windows file time to Unix timestamp, and then from Unix timestamp, and that gives us our time, 18th of October at 9:05. So 9:05s are initial access. So keep that in mind for our timeline. Okay, question 2. Sorry, just moving my windows around. Question 2, execution. Windows assigned access restricts Kiosk users to running a single application. Understanding which executable was configured for the Kiosk is essential to identify how the threat actor was initially constrained before the breakout. What is the name of the executable configured to launch at Kiosk start? So that's another question where the question's nearly given away the answer. We know that they've got Edge on the screen because that's what they just broke out of. So likely it's going to be MS Edge, but where would we find that information to confirm? So we jump back on to the endpoint. I've already navigated to the keys to try and save time. So okay, we've got what hives this. This is the correct one, enter user. And if we go down, okay, the key is down the bottom here. It's software, Microsoft, Windows, current version, policies, Explorer, RestrictRun. So that's where we are. And it is msedge.exe. So that's our answer for question 2. And like I said, it's sort of hinted at in the question. So question 3, execution. Kiosk applications often use specific command line arguments to enforce restrictions such as full screen mode, disabled navigation, and idle timeouts. Identifying these arguments helps understand what security boundaries the threat actor had to circumvent. What are the full command line arguments used with the Kiosk application? So we jump back into our registry viewer. We now need to look at the software hive. So I can minimize our enter user, and we've got the software hive open here. So Microsoft, in fact, the whole point of opening it in advance was so I could save time. So I'll just jump straight down to it and we'll read the key down the bottom here. So Microsoft, Windows, assigned access configuration, profiles. We've got the GUID, allowed apps, app 0. So app 0, expand these a little bit. Actually, need to expand them quite a lot. We've got MS Edge, and we can see the arguments to run. So it's -- no first run, -- kiosk file, and it's got the index. That's most likely what's displaying the QR code, and full screen, and a timeout of 1,440 minutes. That's our answer for question 3. Okay, question 4 is execution. After escaping the Kiosk restrictions by launching a new browser instance, the threat actor needed to execute commands on the system. However, the assigned access policy restricted which executables the Kiosk user could run. Identifying what file the threat actor downloaded reveals how they plan to bypass this restriction. What is the name of the file downloaded by the threat actor after escaping the Kiosk? So we've already got the history file open from Edge. We're on the URL table. If we go to downloads, okay, we can see downloaded was cmd.exe, and the question revolves around getting terminal access. So cmd.exe is the answer to question 4. And again, we've got the timestamp here. So we can also grab this again. Remember to multiply by 10, so we put a 0 on the end. And 9:08. So 3 minutes after escaping the browser, they've then downloaded CMD. So just so we're keeping the timeline in mind. Okay, question 5. Execution. After downloading the file identified previously, the threat actor likely renamed it to match the allowed executable name to bypass the application restriction policy. Determining the exact timestamp of execution established when the threat actor gained command line access to the system. When did the threat actor execute the downloaded file? Okay, so we know that it was downloaded from Edge. We've got C drive users, Kiosk downloads, CMD. If we go to our artifacts, let's see if our KAPE has got anything in users Kiosk. So it didn't download, there's no copy of downloads. So our other option is then if we go to Timeline Explorer, we go to prefetch timeline. Okay, so we were looking at the timeline before. 9:08 was when it was downloaded. And we can see here that this path at 9:08 is users kiosk downloads msedge.exe. So that doesn't fit with msedge. And that's the same location CMD was downloaded to. So we're seeing it executed from that location. So if we investigate the prefetch files, users, Windows, prefetch, MS. I guess look at the prefetch here. See how they're all using the same hash. So it's 37D, and then the hash is incrementally going up 9A, 9B, 9C, 9D, 9E, and then A2. And then look at this hash being generated here, B674. It's completely off the other edges. So if we go into PowerShell, and like I said, I don't quite like using Timeline Explorer, so I'll just output it here. Change it to file. And we're looking at MS Edge. Let's look at one of the ones that the hashes all match. So if we look at this, -F, verify the path is. Oh, I'm in the wrong directory. So we'll look at the example of legitimate edge process being ran. We can see, look at the output, look at the amount of DLLs it's touching. It's 200 odd touches. Then if we look at the suspicious one, look at the output, 21 compared to the 200 that is touching with their official edge. So this is obviously not edge, and it's in the downloads folder of where CMD was ran. And we can see it's in app data, users, kiosk, downloads. So this looks like our CMD. And then we can also run against a CMD prefetch. Look how similar they are. Nearly identical. So we want the runtime from here. Last run, 908. So that's our answer to question 5. And if we look at Timeline Explorer with the Prefetch Explorer, we can just see the timeline there as well. But that was just to confirm why we're choosing Edge. So question 6 is privilege escalation. With command line access established, the threat actor's next objective was privilege escalation. Attackers commonly download enumeration scripts to identify misconfigurations that could elevate their access. What is the full URL from which the threat actor downloaded the privilege escalation enumeration script? So we jump onto the endpoint again. We know the attacker is currently accessing via the copied CMD. So it's going to be a command line. So where will we look for command lines? We'll go to PowerShell history to see if that's there. So users, kiosk, app data, is it local or roaming? I think roaming. Microsoft, Windows, PowerShell. And we've got console host underscore history.txt. Okay, so we can see IWR, HTTP, file.bsx, www.dsdsa.dev, lightpeas.bat. So I'm guessing that's a different version of linpeas, or winpeas in this case. It was downloaded to public lp.bat for the output. Looks like typo on the first command, they didn't fill it in correctly. So that's the answer to question 6. So question 7. Privilege escalation still. After obtaining the local administrator credentials, the threat actor needed to spawn a new process running under the KioskAdmin security context. What is the full command executed by the threat actor to start a new process as the KioskAdmin user? Okay, so jump back to the PowerShell history we're looking at. We know they're still going to be running from the terminal or from a PowerShell. And we can see further down that they've ran the lp.bat. They've then got whatever information they got from the bat. They've then deleted the lp.bat, and then they've used runas/user kiosk admin PowerShell. So that's the answer to question 7. Okay, question 8. Okay, privilege escalation still. Running as kiosk admin doesn't automatically grant elevated high integrity privileges due to user access control UAC. The threat actor would need to explicitly launch elevated process and approve the UAC prompt. When did the threat actor obtain full administrative privileges by launching the elevated PowerShell process? Okay, so back onto the endpoint, we've got Timeline Explorer, we've got prefetch timeline. So we can see that they've ran, this is a CMD, They're doing some recon. Who am I? IP config, ping. Okay, the PowerShell's been launched. Registry. Find star. We're looking for consent, which is going to be the UAE prompt. So we'll just keep going through. Okay, there's the run as that we just saw before. And there's a PowerShell. Who am I? Then there's the consent and a PowerShell. So this will be the elevated PowerShell. So the timeline will be 9/24 as our answer for question 8. And our justification for that is that this is the consent, this is the elevated privileges there. So question 9, defense evasion. What is the name of the registry value that was set to 0 to disable user account control? Okay, so back into registry and into system. I haven't, into software. I haven't pulled this one up in advance, so we'll have to drill down. What are we in at the moment? We're in Microsoft Windows. So we want current version. Microsoft Windows, already there, current version. Policies. And this is simply a Google what registry key disables UAC. And then system. Okay, we've got the key here, enable LUA and 0. 0 means disabled. So UAC is disabled with this. So our answer for question 9 is enable LUA. So question 10, defense evasion. Before concluding their attack, the threat actor attempted to cover their tracks by tampering with evidence of commands executed under the KioskAdmin account. When did the threat actor overwrite the PowerShell command history file to remove evidence of suspicious commands from KioskAdmin? Okay. Let's check our KAPE image. Let's see what timestamp is on the file. It might just be, yeah, it's going to be when it was pulled. Let's just look at what is actually in the PowerShell history to see what they overrode it with. So yeah, timestamp here is not going to be helpful. So RDP and then the KAPE output. Okay, so we could look at Timeline Explorer. We could see our MFT. Let's see if we have console, the console host. History.txt. So we've got KioskAdmin, and we know our attack time frame is around 9:30 to 9:50 at this stage. And looking at our modified timestamps, (12:24), that's too late. Access 12:20. So those timestamps don't fit. So if you're trying to edit text file, what would you do? Open it in Notepad, or would you open it in WinWord? I'm guessing Notepad. So if we go back to our prefetch timeline, we're looking at around, oh, well, there's quite a big gap here. So we saw the PowerShell elevated privileges here. Who am I? We can then see a notepad that's ran. That's suspicious that it's fitting in also with our timeline. We've got 3 instances of notepad being ran. Let's pull the prefetch for notepad. So we've only got the one. Okay, we can see here that notepad's touched KioskAdmin, roaming, Microsoft PowerShell, console host _ history. So that's our file. So it has been edited by Notepad. So let's get the last runtime. 9:43. That's going to be that answer for question 10. We can see that it touched the file, and we've got the last runtime of 9:43, which fits in with our attack. So let's lock that in. Question 11. Defense evasion still. Before changing back to the registration page in restricted browser. Sorry, let me restart that. Before changing back to the registration page in restricted browser opened by Kiosk, the threat actor tried to clear off the tracks by deleting the downloaded file identified earlier. What is the name of this file in the recycle bin? So the file that they're talking about is cmd.exe, which got renamed to MS-Edge. So we go to our artifacts, go to C drive, go to recycle bin. Okay, so we have the $I 0bd893.exe, so it means it's the metadata. And normally this is accompanied with $R, which is like the binary of the file. But without looking, we can probably assume this is the only file in here that this is most likely going to be the answer. But let's actually recover the metadata. Sorry, let me edit our query here. So we want to use RBCMD. Is it RB? Yeah. RB, and I'll need to fix up. Was it recycle? Then C, then recycle, then hopefully it's not going to autofill for me. Apologies. S15, and then is it $I? Okay, so if we run this, it's processing it, and we can see that it was a 283 KB file, and it was msedge.exe. So that is the file that we were after. However, it's $I, which means it's just the metadata, and $R is normally the binary. So the answer to the recycling bin will be $R and then 0bd893. Okay, so that's question 11. Question 12. Credential access. The privilege escalation script likely discovered credentials stored insecurely in the Microsoft registry. What is the password for the KioskAdmin account that the threat actor retrieved from the registry? Okay, so I think we can all guess that this one's going to be auto logon. So in the software hive, we're going to navigate to Microsoft Windows NT. Can I just drill these back down? Collapse. Okay, let's go through it. Okay, so Microsoft Windows NT. Sorry, I should have had these open as well. Too many registries. Current version and WinLogon. Because you assume with the kiosk, they want it to auto boot up and auto log in. So what do we have listed in WinLogon key? We've got last used username, KioskAdmin, default username, KioskAdmin, default domain name, KioskExpo7, and default password, KioskAdmin. So that's question 12, KioskAdmin. And just confirming again, sorry, the key is in Software Hive, Microsoft, Windows NT, current version, WinLogon. Okay, question 13, discovery. One of the scheduled tasks functioned as a beacon, periodically sending system information, including the public IP and hostname, to a C2 server. What is the full URL of the public API used by the beacon script to retrieve the system's public address? Okay, so this one sort of jumps straight into it a little bit. We were previously looking at the registry, looking at the default logon password, and then now we're looking for a public API that's getting the information. Anyone that's done a lot of the CyberDefender labs or BTL online labs, I think you might know already what the API is going to be. It's the commonly used one, but what I wanted to illustrate is why we suddenly, with this pivot, what hints us towards the direction that we're going to look in. So if we go back to the timeline for prefetch, we can sort of get an idea again of what was going on. And earlier we saw these scheduled tasks being ran. So we can see that the task was ran. You can see the notepad, task was ran, see notepad. And so that's looking like they're most likely writing a script. So we should start looking for, is there a PowerShell script somewhere? And it's going to be a small script if it's just beaconing. So this is why we pulled initially the --dr to get the resident files. So if we now go into the resident files that we pulled, which was C drive temp, resident, do we have any .ps1? Okay, so jumping out straight away in the search results, update and alive, both small scripts that seem suspicious. So let's have a look. Okay, and then we spot this is the website that's commonly used to show geolocation information. And we can also see this same bsx www.ds.dev domain that pulled the, what was it called? It wasn't linpeas, no, it wasn't winpeas, lightpeas .bat. So we know we're on the right hunt here. So the API URL is https://ipinfo.io/JSON. That's 13. And this is a popular site. Okay, 14. To maintain persistent access to the compromised kiosk, the threat actor created PowerShell scripts that would be executed by scheduled tasks. What is the full folder path where the threat actor created the PowerShell persistent scripts? This is another reason why when you're doing the labs that it's good to read through all the questions first, because you'll see that a lot of the later questions can hint you to your earlier questions. All right. So jump back onto the endpoint. We've got our alive.ps1. Might be worth opening the update as well. Okay, quick update.txt is grabbing another stage. All right, we're looking for the directory where these are saved to. So if we go to Timeline Explorer and go to our MFT, we go to extension, look for .ps1. Oh, we're already at the most current entries at the bottom here. So we can see this fits our attack window, 10th of the 18th, 9:35 and 9:37. You can see our two files here, alive.ps1 and update.ps1, and they're in program data / maintenance. So that's the answer to question 14. Okay, persistence. The threat actor configured scheduled tasks to execute the persistent scripts, disguising them with legitimate sounding names to avoid detection. What are the names of the two scheduled tasks created by the threat actor? Okay, so let's jump back to MFT. We know that tasks are going to be written to Windows System32 tasks. We can see all the tasks here and the names of the tasks. We're already sorted by the date. So we've got our latest events down the bottom here. The 10th of 2005-10-18, 9:42, which is in our attack window. We can see two tasks created: kiosk status check and kiosk update. So that will be the answer to question 15. So on to question 16. Command and control. The second scheduled task implemented a polling mechanism to receive instructions from the C2 server. When the server responded with a specific trigger value, the script would download and execute additional payloads. What is the file name of the script that would be fetched and executed when the C2 server returned 1? So if we jump onto, well, actually, we already discovered these scripts earlier. Remember in resident, actually, we can open it in Notepad because we have them both open already. We found alive.ps1, and that was polling the ipinfo.io API to get geodata. And we also opened the other script, which was update.ps1. And in this script, we can see the second stage here, which was pulling file.bsx www.dsdsa.dev / quick update.txt. So quick update.txt will be the answer to question 16. And then question 17. Impact. With administrative access secured, The threat actor's objective shifted to weaponizing the kiosk against conference attendees. The kiosk displayed a QR code for registration, replacing it with a malicious version, could redirect victims to a phishing site. What is the file name of the replacement QR code image, and when was it placed on the desktop? Okay, so jumping back onto the endpoint, we have our MFT from the scheduled tasks. So we know that from our edge history, sorry, brain fog for a second there, we can see that the QR code was downloaded and it's a PNG. And we also saw that earlier from, was it the URLs? It was sourcing it as desktop. So we're looking for a PNG on the desktop. So if we go to our Timeline Explorer, so instead of looking for the task folder, let's change it to, is it, what was it, Kiosk Ad? Just, no, it wasn't the admin, it was just Kiosk and desktop. Okay, so we're seeing the index that we know was feeding the QR code and the image. So we'll want to look for a timestamp. So it's, oh, hang on, what's the question? We'll just flick back for a second. What was it? Question 17. Okay, format is file name and the timestamp. Okay. So file name, qr-code.png. Pretty clear that that's going to be the QR code. Fed via the index.html loaded on the screen. And we're looking for a timestamp. So created is not going to be the right time. It's going to be when it was last modified. So last record change for 0-10, 9:30. So our timestamp's going to be 09:30. Okay. Question. Sorry, my mic's in the way of the theme deck. Question 17. Question 17, is it? Final question. Impact. With administrative access secured, the threat actor's objective shifted to weaponizing the kiosk against conference attendees. Sorry, that's the one we just went through. 18. Impact. The new QR code redirects conference participants to a phishing site instead of a legitimate registration page. What is the URL of the phishing page that is now displayed? Okay, so we want to grab CyberChef, which I've loaded up in Thorium, and where do we want to go? To artifacts, desktop, artifacts, kiosk, users, kiosk, desktop. So we're after the QR code. What options do we have to open this? Open with. Oh, let's open with Paint. So we've got the QR code here. This is what was being displayed. We've got CyberChef. Let's open file as input, QR code, and recipe QR, raise QR code, bake. Okay, so our output is register. Notice the double R there. Also suspicious dot browser conf.dev/register, and do I have a virus total? I'll fire it up here. Not sure if it will be on VirusTotal, but let's just check. Okay, so it's not flagged, but that's our, okay, it's not flagged there, but that's our domain for question 18, our URL, sorry. So register with 2r's dot wowser conf.dev / register.php. I wonder if it's worth doing image URL to image, or we could do any.run. I mean, the lab's finished at this point, but let's just see if the domain's up. Just that it wasn't flagged as malicious. It'd be nice to see what the threat actor was redirecting people to, so we can go submit URL. We can put our URL in here, and let's just see, it might not be up anymore. No, so it's not up. Okay. All right, so let's go with the summary of our lab. So KioskExpo7 by CyberDefenders was a medium ranked lab. The ETA was about an hour to complete, which it has taken me about that long, although we are going through and explaining it. So we had Registry Explorer, ntuser.dat. We found msedge.exe in there with the arguments no-first run -- kiosk. And we found that RestrictRun was confirming msedge as the only allowed executable. We also then utilized database browser for SQLite, and we pulled in the edge history, and we got the timestamp from there, which was 9:05, I believe, is their initial attack. Oh, it's 9:05 and 15 seconds, and the URL that broke them out of the browser was the go.microsoft.com, and the downloads table showed us cmd.exe was downloaded at 9:08. We then used prefetch, so PE CMD from Zimmerman's, and we found that the CMD was renamed to msedge.exe as it's the only allowed process to be ran. And that was in C drive users kiosk downloads and was named msedge. We checked the prefetch and we noticed that legitimate edge had about 200 different queries or DLLs that it touched, whereas CMD only had 22 and the last runtime was 9:08, so that fit with our timeline. We then had the Kiosk users console history for PowerShell. We saw the IWR pull down of the file.bsx wwds dsa.dev lightpeas.bat, which we assume is a version of WinPeas, and that was put into users public lp.bat. It was then deleted after it was ran, and they then escalated privileges, run as, and the user KioskAdmin. Okay, we then had Registry Explorer, and we looked at the key HKLM software, Microsoft Windows NT current version, WinLogon. We found the entry in there for the default password of KioskAdmin in plain text and the default username. There was also a last write time of 12:05, which predates our incident. Okay, we then in Registry Explorer we're looking at the software hive at policies, and we saw KHLM software, Microsoft Windows current version policy system, and this is where we saw the UAC was disabled, set to 0. with the last write time of 9:25, which was just after 10 minutes after they got a terminal access. Okay, we then have MFT and Timeline Explorer. So command or cmd.exe was renamed to msedge.exe in downloads, and we saw that at 9:08. Then we saw the KioskAdmin console host _ history.txt being written with Notepad at 9:43, and we found the msedge.exe deleted in the recycling bin at 9:45, and qr.png was on the desktop as qr-code.png at 9:30. Our recovery via mft-dr, so the resident files, the small scripts, we found a live.ps1.bin, which was pulling down the geolocation API, or was hitting the geolocation IP of ipinfo.io/json, was getting the computer name, and then update.ps1.bin. From the resident folder, we found another stage, which was pulling down quickupdate.txt from the same domain. And lastly, for scheduled tasks, we saw kiosk status check and kiosk update created in C Drive Windows System32 tasks at 9:42. And that summarizes the KioskExpo7 box on CyberDefenders. Hope you enjoyed the walkthrough, and I'll see you on the next one. And trying to hit my outro. Oh no, where is it? Bang, we're done.